Good morning, everybody. Good morning, those who are watching us online. Good morning for those who are here with us. Uh, First of all, thank you guys for coming. Thank you for joining us here on this fine day. Another very important chance for us to talk about Spiritism. Before we start, I'm going to ask Ju to do a reading from the book Happy Life, and our initial prayer.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to do a message from Happy Life. The greatest lesson is love. Without it, objectives lose their purpose, leaving the individual at the mercy of his inferior passions. Love dilutes the shadows of negative feelings, impressing the seal of gentleness on all actions. So love all and everything. Practice love in nature, splendid with its sun, air, trees, flowers, fruits, animals, and human beings. Let yourself be moved by the silence invitation that the Father Creator makes to you and spread your emotions over everything, sweetening yourself inwardly. The more you love, the less you will be susceptible to the parts of evil, because your increased understanding will open your spaces to life, and you will reap only the effects of peace. So let's close our eyes and be thankful for this moment. And we ask our Master and our Creator to bless Raphael during this lecture so we can learn more and also reflect on our daily activities so we can follow the right path every single day. Thank you so much and be with us. So,
Thank you. Hey guys, good morning. So the topic that I would like to talk about a little bit today is growing with our planet. So how do we develop together with this planet, and what is the meaning of this rock to us as spirits? So as immortal spirits, immortal beings that do not die, just to stress this part, we are created according to divine justice, very simple and ignorant. So we know very little and we do very little. In the beginning, we concentrate on learning how to govern molecules. There's several stages even before that. But if we concentrate on molecules, so we just learn how to put a molecule together. And then we learn how to connect different molecules to form like a protein, which is a molecule with hinges. It turns this way or that way. And then we continue developing, and after a while we learn how to maintain life, how to generate and keep homeostasis, which is what maintains life inside of our body, like temperature, feeding, breathing, excretion, and everything. So when we are at that stage, we know very little. So we don't know who we are. So we just react. We keep reacting. We keep being pushed towards something that we don't know what it is. We just follow that desire to survive, to grow, to continue developing. But we are all destined to greatness. Since that very moment, since the moment that we are created, we are all destined to greatness. We are destined to share in creation, to become an active participant of the will of God. The will of God. I was thinking about these expressions when I was very young. When I was a child, I was raised as a Catholic. So until I was 10, I did all the sacraments, and I used to go to retreats to pray and to participate in mass and things. And I heard several times expressions like that, the will of God, or the glory of God. And I had a tough time trying to understand what that meant. And even though I liked going those retreats, I didn't get many answers for those questions. So when I say that we are destined to participate, to be a full-time participant in the will of God, I want to explain a little bit more what do I mean by that. I want to make this more concrete. What do I mean by the will of God? When we read the Spirit's book, the Spirits, they never define God as a being. It's not a being, a man or otherwise. They define as an intelligence, a cause. So this means that there is a structure, there is something that creates every known phenomena, that is responsible for everything that we experience. Since the yellow flowers, the weeds that we see all over the city now, which I find it really beautiful. So it's not, people don't like it to see that coming out of your lawn because it's a weed and you have to take it off. But it's pretty nonetheless. And the solid state that we feel in this building. So all this is because of this structure that we can say that is the will of God. But we can refer to that in using another term that most people find it more comfortable. We can say is the laws of nature. So we don't use the word God, we use nature. But it's the same thing. If you study gravity, evolution, growing old, the fact that we grow old, that our bodies change, all this, it's matter obeying laws of nature. And this is the will of God. It's one and the same. So if we look at this way, everything that happens to us is the will of God. So if I jump out of the roof of this building and I hurt myself, that's because there is gravity, which is the will of God. There's a law of nature. And then I hurt myself and I blame God. I see that I still think there's a being that is punishing me. But it's not. It's a cause. And I suffer the effect. Then I learn and then I don't jump anymore. So that's right now. We have that huge problem in Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul. And I have, since I was born there, I have family members that are living through that. And the other day I received a message on WhatsApp from one of the family members saying that there was the Madonna show in Rio. And during one of the songs performance, she did what she always does in the stage, something very sexual, or I don't know. I didn't watch it, but people say that she was worshiping the devil, and Rio Grande do Sul was paying for it. So then we see that vision of God as a being that gets mad and punishes, it is still very much alive in our society. And that's why when we ask the will of God, the glory of God, it's hard for us to get answers because people still see as a king, as a man. Interesting enough, he's never a woman. Most of the time, he is a man. So when I mention here the will of God, I'm not referring to that concept. I'm referring to the laws of nature. There is no punishment. There is cause and effect. And we have, since we are created, we have inside of us that intuition that there is a superior force, a superior intelligence that created us. And we are very interesting beings as spirits, as we have two sides. We have the intuition, feelings, and we have our rational side. And sometimes they are they don't touch. We see and we know that there's something there, but we can't explain with our intellect. So we come up with things. We start coming up with things. And then we start developing the rational side. And then finally we start understanding. And then our intuition meets our rationality, our intellect. And we feel this sense of completeness. And so, I found a way. And that gives us faith, strong faith, rational faith. So when we start our walk on this planet, we always feel that there is something, and we can't explain. So we start to come up with symbols, and we say that it's the thunderstorms and lightning bolts. That's God. Heavy rains or the sea, the waves. That's God. We are not wrong. All that is God. But we imagine people like us, like living up there under the sea. So we do what we can to explain what we feel, that thirst that we feel to understand. And then we develop this method that we call the scientific method. That is the self-correcting. We create a hypothesis, like there's a man under the sea. I go look for it, there's no man. Okay, then there's no man. It doesn't matter. If I wanted to have a man there isn't any. So I have to drop completely that idea. So science is, if applied properly, it's always self-correcting. It self-corrects. It doesn't matter your opinion, what you want, your belief. What matters is facts. The fact. So the fact has to agree with your hypothesis, and then you form a theory. If not, you have to drop it. Interesting enough, Kardec, so Spiritism was chosen to be shown to humanity through a scientist. And he says that if there's anything in science that says that Spiritism is wrong, it should be dropped. It should be dropped. So if science comes and says there is no life after death, we have to review that concept. That's Kardec. That's the guy who wrote these books. And we know from the gospel that Jesus, when he came, he explained many things and he left many teachings. But there were several teachings that we could not understand at that time. And he waited 19 centuries for science to develop so that we could understand better what he meant at that time. Not because we needed to know that there is an atom, or we needed to understand electromagnetism or quantum mechanics to finally appreciate the gospel. It's more about the intellectual maturity. Is the intellectual maturity, is the exercise of our brains as a society to appreciate God's will, the laws of nature, and to develop a little bit of humbleness. to see that you can't explain everything. It's more complicated than you think. And it's beautiful. How many scientists became religious from the experiments that they performed? We have many. One example. What's his name now? I forgot. The director of the Human Genome Project from 2000 to 2010. So they developed they mapped the entire DNA of human beings. It was a 10-year project with scientists of all over the world. And this scientist, I think it's Christopher something, I forgot. This scientist, through seeing all that, he found God in those experiments. So now he wrote a book, The Language of God, which talks about DNA. And it's very interesting, his insights. Of course, we have another side. For example, Carl Sagan, the famous astrophysicist. In his book, he says, I don't believe in God, and I don't believe in religion. But then you see him talking about science and his passion about the laws of nature and the beauty that he sees in nature. So the problem is communication. When someone comes to me, I don't believe in God, I don't believe that there is a man at the cloud, then I don't believe in God as well, because I don't believe that. It's the communication, is the idea. When they say that they don't believe in God, they don't believe in this anthropogenic concept. But when you read their books, you see that they do believe. They do believe in the laws of nature, which is the same thing. And they see the beauty that it surrounds us. And interesting enough, when we are growing, we are in this path to evolution, we are given this place. We receive a planet. We take this for granted every day. But we receive this planet for us to evolve, for us to grow. We develop under this star, the sun. So we see the spectrum of light that we can capture with our eyes is exactly the spectrum of the star, because we evolved under this star. We created eyes under the light of this star. But then once we get to the stage where we are, we have the ability to see the beauty in this. So you can't explain that with any scientific knowledge or any DNA. Why is it that I see a sunny day with trees and green and I find it beautiful? What does that mean? You can't create that with the artificial intelligence. You can't. You can make a computer say that, but to feel that, you can't. So that this is extremely. So this is a very important proof that love is what drives everything. The will of God, the laws of nature are love. We don't understand love completely, so this is one of the parts where we act by intuition more than our intellect. We know what love is, we feel it, but we explain as a feeling. We don't see it yet as something that creates everything. We don't connect love with the laws of physics, but it's all interconnected. We can only explain as a feeling. When we see what is happening with the world, with the people suffering, we want to help. And anyone who tells us that helping is not right, we know for sure that that person is wrong. So the helping is not something that we question. we can tell, we can be lazy. We can just think that I'm not going to do something today for one reason or that reason. So we create a lot of justifications for ourselves. But we know that helping is right. We know that loving our family members is right. There's no intellect in there. It's feeling. One day, there will be, so our science would develop enough to say that to have a happy life and a healthy life, you need to love and you need to practice charity. We have, sometimes the doctors say that they use different code words for instead of saying that they cannot understand what is going on. So they have different words. So one of them is stress. So that's caused by stress. Yeah, but why? Nobody knows. It's just stress causes this and that. It's a correlation more than a causation. So they say they take 100 people, and those 100, if they're all stressed, they develop this disease, that other disease. So then they do a correlation there. Another one is placebo effect. We don't know why, but you healed yourself. I told you I would give you the medicine. I didn't. I gave you water and sugar, and you healed yourself. That's the power of the placebo effect. But why? Nobody knows. It's a placebo effect. So there are science one day will get to a point where we'll understand love as being this is me. That's how I imagine, like a field. We are living in this field, and when we feel love, it's when we interact with this field and this goes through us, and it makes us alive. It brings us health because we are interfacing with this field that goes through us. When we practice charity, it's like we are opening ourselves and connecting to this field. It's like so we know that we all have mass, and the mechanism for mass is because we interact with the field. This has recently been discovered. So we call the Higgs field. So the mass that I have now, I will have in Mars, I will have in the middle of the space. I'm not going to lose that mass because my body interacts with this field that gives me that mass. I can feel more or less weight depending on the gravity field that I'm inserting. I use a lot of these analogies because that's how my head works. So I don't want to make it complicated. I just want to explain. So when we, as spirits, immortal spirits, we develop ourselves in this planet, and then we discover methods to know more and more about God. We can call laws of nature, we can call biology, physics, geology. It's all God. And some of those laws we still cannot explain with our intellect. Maybe one day we're going to get there. So in all this process, we are inside of this planet that I see as an incubator. This planet, it allows us to grow, to develop. We became human beings in this planet. And one day, we'll be able to leave this planet when we no longer need an incubator, when we no longer need to have physical bodies to learn lessons. When we learn all the necessary lessons, then an incarnate life provides us. And then we'll be free of reincarnation, not free of work. And when we get to that stage, will be able to be always in contact with this love, and we're going to start being full-time participants of God's will. And then we see what we call angels. What are angels? Those are spirits who no longer need to incarnate. And they come to us as supervisors. So I see ourselves in this incubator as a spiritual interns. So I work in the lab, so I have a lot of interns. And interns, they do a lot of work, but they have to be supervised because they make mistakes. Sometimes something explodes. And I'm not talking just figuratively. So we do have explosions, flame. It happens. So we are like those interns. We have our abilities, we have our skills, but we need to be supervised. And supervised by whom? By those who already went through this road and they learn everything like us, and now they come back to help us. They don't need a body anymore, but they can help us through intuition. So even though we are interns, we are interns of intelligent spirits. And one day, as I said, I repeat, we'll be participants of the will of God. So we'll learn how to use properly the laws of nature. We'll learn how to apply in a sustainable way, but not yet. Because we are interns and we work really hard, we were able to bring our planet to an advanced stage. So we are coming out of the primitive era and we are starting a more advanced era. So we got this far. So we got to a completely different scenario, even if we talk 40 years ago. It's completely different. However, as interns, we were not able to do that in a sustainable way. The scenario or the system that we created for ourselves is not sustainable. We can't, our society today is not sustainable. Well, why did we create something that's not sustainable? Because we don't know how to do any better. And that's how the planet that we are inserted in can teach us how to get there. Sometimes through destruction. It shows us that you can't put this aside anymore. You have to take more aggressive and strong measures, or you will suffer. It's not a punishment. It's not a punishment. It's us jumping out of a building. We break our legs. It's a consequence. Yeah, it's a consequence. So instead of seeing what is happening to the world as a God that is mad at us and is punishing us, we should see as a consequence of our own acts as a civilization. And we see the divine will on the immortality of the spirits. Humans suffer, spirits suffer, but they don't die. They don't die. Right now in Rio Grande do Sul, more than 500,000 people lost everything. It's a statewide flood that never happened in the history. There was something smaller in the 40s, but then they put barriers and dams, and now it happened worse, even with the barriers and the dams. And it's still raining, it didn't stop. So, and we have hundreds of people that lost their lives. They are not dead. They are not dead. They are Maybe they were rescued on the spiritual side. Some of them, maybe they came back to help as spirits, those who were still discarnated or those family members who were suffering, but they don't die. We suffer, but we don't die. So this is the planet showing us, because next time we come back. It doesn't matter how we lose the material life. We will come back. And when we come back, we'll bring with us as intuition what we learned. We'll think twice about how we use the resources of our planet. And the world is changing. This is taking root. So if we think about the moment that we are, that's one of the things, another thing that we take for granted. There has never been in our history such an accelerated development in all directions, not just science. I brought a few examples just to show us. Women in Canada, they were allowed to vote since 1916. So that's a little over 100 years. And then globally, we have women with the right to vote for less than 2 centuries. Before that, women could not vote. It was not allowed because society thought that they were not capable of making decisions. So imagine that. If I say that today, I'm arrested. I lose my career, so it's terrible. But that was not too long ago. Another example, Alan Turing, the father of artificial intelligence. He was talking about artificial intelligence 100 years ago. He decrypted the Enigma machine in the World War II. But he was a homosexual. And it was forbidden. It was against the law to be a homosexual. So he was condemned. And he suffered chemical castration. So this means that they force estrogen into a man. So to remove all sense of libido, but it makes life unbearable. So he grew breasts, and and he lost all his clearance in the government with his projects. He was on house arrest, taking estrogen every day. So he killed himself just because he had a different sexual orientation. He was a homosexual. It was forbidden. Another one, I don't know if anybody knows this. In Brazil, it was against the law to be a spiritist until 1940s. What we are doing here, if we were in Brazil before 1940, we would be arrested, all of us, and spend at least 6 months in jail. It was against the law. And that's not too long ago. I had friends in Brazil who remember that, they were born before that date, and he remembered. So this is just a few examples to show how much we are growing, how much we are accelerating. And now we are on a crossroad. We reach a point where we need to make a decision. We can no longer continue with the ways of the past. We have to change. So what we are doing, it's not sustainable, not just physically, the energy resources that we still use, but also morally. The values that are being corrupted in our society. Because right now we are completely connected. So we have devices in our pockets that puts us in contact with all the knowledge in the world. We are always connected. And that brings us not only good information. So with the same device that we can watch a lecture from Divaldo Franco, Haroldo Dutra, or a speech from the Pope, and that people are using to watch us right now. Of course, I'm not the Pope. There's no correlation between the three other names and myself. But it's whoever is trying to connect with us, it has a good intention to, I want to know more. I want to be a better person. With the same device, we can also connect with triggers that makes us remember past addictions. We see things that attract us and we know are not good because we learned that those are not good, whatever it is. We learned that in past lives. But we are still interns, as I said. We are still not fully professionals. So when we go to social media, they have what they call filters. And there are algorithms that they try to learn your standards. If you stay on a screen for 2 or 3 seconds more, they capture that. If you like something, if you dislike something, they capture all that, and then they start accumulating that. So this is it's a artificial intelligence algorithm. So this means that there is a millions of neural networks, and they start lighting up according to your behavior. So then they are being trained. So there's an input and an output, and then they keep collecting data, and then they configure. And then when they finish configuring, that's your profile. Then you start receiving more and more of that you liked, and it keeps going on. And then every now and then it comes an advertisement of a product that is completely related to that profile that was created of you. And then you, well, okay, like a pair of pants, a toolbox, or whatever, something that you would like, and you go there and you buy. So these companies are capitalizing on your tendencies. It doesn't matter if those tendencies are good or not. Because sometimes you see people partying and drinking a lot, and you know you are an alcoholic. This is just an example. And then you stay there and you stare at that screen for a little bit more, for a little bit longer. And that starts coming back to you. Even if you don't want to, it starts coming back to you. And somewhere in your brain, you start having that craving again, because you were an addict. So we have our addictions. And then you start having that craving, and it becomes much harder to continue sober. But the companies are capitalizing on them. So we are in a situation that we can use for the good or for the bad. But how do we, what should we do to protect ourselves? Vigilance. We need to be vigilant, especially in the situation where we're living now. Vigilant of our own tendencies. If we have a particular tendency and we see that that's not helping me, those filters, that social media is not helping me, then maybe you should consider if you should continue being participating. Your health, your mental health, and your evolution as a spirit is more important than being connected to a platform. I'm not saying that we all should erase our Facebook profiles or whatever else is there today, but we should be vigilant, very vigilant, because that can trigger tendencies from our past that we don't want anymore. So we should be very careful. But how many people are vigilant? How many people consciously are always self-checking? It's very little. So that's why I say that the model that we are living now, it's not sustainable. It's not. We need to change, and we will change. We will, because that is our survival. Our survival depends on it. And things are changing, and it will change. How fast, I don't know. But we will change. There is a book that was published in 1952, Roteiro, or Itinerary. And in chapter 9, Emmanuel, the spirit that communicated through Chico Xavier, he tells us that at that moment, there were 20 billion discarnate spirits in our world. In 1952, we had 2.5 billion people in the world, in the incarnated people. So this means that in our planet, we have around 23 billion people, 23 billion spirits. Some of them incarnated, some of them discarnated. So this means, at first glance, you can say that, okay, the population is going to grow, but it cannot go above 23 billion. Because at 23 billion, every single spirit is incarnated, it's in the planet. And you say, yeah, okay. But it can never be 23 billion. So imagine this, you are in a mediumship meeting, and you're there trying to concentrate, and you call the mentors, and just a staff, a clerk, a spiritual clerk, comes and say, there's nobody here, man. There's no more spirits on the other side. There's a huge regeneration, World of Regeneration Festival on Earth. Everybody's there. There's nobody here. So that cannot be. So we still need people on the other side. So there's never going to be 23 billion people. So, and we see now that the curve of growth is saturating. So it's an inverse exponential. So it grew like that. Now it's kind of start rounding up. So this means when from 7 billion to 8 billion, it took 12 years. 10 or 12. From 8 to 9 is going to take 14 years. From 9 to 10, between 16 and 18 years. So it's going to be, for us to move to another billion, is going to start taking longer and longer and longer, so that we're going to reach a point where it's not going to grow anymore. But why is it that the population is slowing down, and it grew so much? So if you say from the middle of the 19th century to now, it's like exploded. But then it exploded throughout the 20th century, and then it started slowing down. It is a peak. This is because everybody is invited to participate in the transition that we are going through now. So the world is in a transition, is in a transformation. And all the spirits that needed to be here, they were washed out. So they were, okay, everybody out. Everybody to the planet now. Everybody go back. And then we have spirits that hadn't reincarnated for centuries. And we see the comeback of very old ideas, very ancient ideas, like extreme racism, the belief of a superior race. There isn't any race, there's only the human race. The rest is a few differences in DNA. But those people, they believe, if I'm white, if I I'm heterosexual. And if I'm a man, I'm the superior being. Everybody else is the inferior being. It's still alive. So the world is changing, but we have pockets of these these ideas that every now and then and that they show people who are afraid of science. They just don't want to know anything about it. They don't want to read about it. They just say it's wrong. They don't want to know anything about it. And they get angry. But they are all invited to participate because we all are destined to greatness. We all have to grow. And all the spirits are invited to participate in this transformation. But sometimes, as I said before, the planet, it has to teach us a very strong lesson. And that comes with destruction. So the other day, I wanted to watch news. So I turned on the news, and they started with the war in Gaza, then the war in Ukraine, famine in Sudan, wildfires in Canada, and the flood in Brazil. So then I thought, okay, all this, what can I do to help in any of these? What would this do? Would this be useful to me right now? So that's not going to help me develop the company where I work and create jobs and maintain the jobs of all those who are there. So then, okay, you know what? I'm going to concentrate on my duty. I help in what I can. Send donations. Even today in Brazil, even if you want to go there, the airport is underwater. So we be vigilant. We have to be vigilant. And if we want to know what is it that we should do during this transformation of the world, well, if you find yourself in a field, an open field, and a plow in your hand, you know what you have to do. You're going to plow the field. So where do you find yourself now? Where are you now in this society? So concentrate in doing your duty the best you can. To be the best person you can be. Being vigilant and looking at your tendencies. How do I struggle against my tendencies? This is all of us. It's our lifetime goal is try to learn how to struggle with it, how to win against our tendencies. And one of the things is try to avoid triggers, whatever it is. Could be, as I said, drinking, could be gossip, it could be, I don't know, being aggressive in traffic, being aggressive in your family, disturbed sexual behavior, could be drugs, overeating. So okay, we all have our tendencies. So now is the time for us to be as vigilant as we can and try to be the best version of ourselves. Because we never know who is watching us. We never know who is going to take us as an example and is going to follow us. There's a book from André Luiz that is called The Messengers. So it's like book 2, it's after Nosso Lar. And the messengers, it's a very interesting concept. Those are spirits like us, but they accept bigger responsibilities. They accept that they're going to take an important position in society. It doesn't mean a famous person. This is famous. Fame is something for the human being. There's nothing to do with God's work. Father of Jesus that Joseph, without him, there wouldn't have been Mary, there wouldn't have been Jesus, because he needed to support the family. And we barely see his name in the Bible, but he was there day in, day out, working in his shop and providing for his family. Jesus started his mission with he was 33. Until then, he was supported and he helped. He learned to help Joseph, but we don't see his name anywhere. And he was there doing his duty. Without his duty, we wouldn't have had the gospel. So then these messengers, they take responsibilities and they come. And then the mentors tell them, okay, you take this responsibility. So the way we can help you is you're going to have a healthy body, relatively healthy body. You're going to have a healthy brain. You will be able to do a good education and have a good job. So then your finances are taken care of. You're not going to be rich, but you're going to be able to afford a comfortable life. In return, you take responsibility by fulfilling the duty that you accept right now, whatever it is, whatever it is. And then they come. Most of them do not succeed. They come here, they have an easy life, and they forget. And then they go back, and then they try again, they go back, and try again. But some of them, they do. They do. And those becomes like the examples that we see in life of people that are successful, and they're also very good. And we see, and this is a nice guy. Right? This is a person that I would follow. We don't know if we are those people. We don't know. But we are always an example to someone in some particular moment of our lives. So if we do that, we are doing our duties. We are not here to save the world. The world doesn't need saving. The world needs good people. That's it. We just need to do our part, being the best what we can do, where we are inserted, in the position where we are inserted, in our jobs, in our families, doing whatever it is that we have to do. Thank you very much, guys. This is what I wanted to bring to you. And I hope I was able to transfer the concepts out of my head. And now I wanted to see if there's any questions from people online. No, we're good. Is there any comments and questions from any one of you guys?
There is a comment that I would like to make.
Yes.
So you mentioned that Spiritism was illegal in Brazil in the 40s. And one thing that I always like to remember is that this tradition that we have when we come to the Spirit Center of signing the names, right? Is because in the past, they were used as a form of control, right? So the government would come and see, and they would have the names of everybody that was coming to the Spiritist meetings, right? So even the things that we have now are based on the traditions that we had in the past when Spiritism was illegal or regulated.
That's very interesting. I didn't know. So you see that we came very far. Yes.
Yeah, but here we find the difference because we are a non-profit organization, and that actually is to be accountable to the government, like not the way around. It's just to help us in this progress, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, at least we are not crucified and burned anymore. So that this is already a good thing. All it happens now is that people calls us crazy. But that's okay. Yeah.
Christ's healing for years, I guess we all thought that he was correcting and changing nature. And we realized that Christ healing the bodies, leprosy, whatever it was restoring the body to its nature, its real nature. And then in all of his healings, there wasn't one natural law broken.
Yeah, exactly. So we say another thing that I learned when I was a kid, that miracles are those things that you can't explain. It's like it's against the laws of nature. That's actually a little bit of arrogance of us saying that it's against the laws, but do we know all the laws? Or it's outside nature? We don't know all the laws to say what's in and what's out. And if we have this God that creates all the laws, why would he or she not use it? So it's a different concept. Saying it's so these spirits, they just know everything that is related to the laws of nature. So if somehow, let's say, I'm going to take myself as an example. Sometimes I think about that, and I'm taken away from this world, and I'm too bad for this world. I'm taken away and I'm put in a more primitive world. I'm going to look for copper somewhere. I'm going to look for copper, and I'm going to look for stones that are magnetic, and I'm going to make the stone turn inside the copper to produce electricity, and I'll be a magician. But that's the if I maintain my conscience, that's the first thing I'm going to do is to produce electricity. And if they allow me to leave, they don't kill me, I'll be a magician. So that's the same thing. So we have these spirits that they come to us, and they cannot explain everything. They can't. We will never be able to understand. But then they can show us. They can show that there's something else. And that's what Jesus did. That's what so many others also did. There's, as I said, there's no natural laws broken. It's just things that we still don't know.
And just adding to this part of the beginning, Joanna de Angelis, she has a few books, but one like Health and Consciousness and the Glorious Days, that is more recent. And she talks and she explained how everything that you were talking about in the beginning, how our thoughts and feelings um, reflect our physical health and our being. And actually, she goes even beyond and tells that it affects our DNA. And we are able, in a certain extent, of course, respecting whatever we have to go through in this incarnation, to heal ourselves, right? And this, and I think it's also progress because the time of Karnak in his book, he thought just tell us like the power of our thought, but not in too much detail because we were not able to understand. And Joanna de Angelis in her books, and she talks about a lot of that and can help us somehow, a little bit.
And this is finding its way in medicine today.
Yeah.
As I said before, in terms of a correlation, so they ask you, you are sick or you have a self-immune disease. They tell you, are you stressed? How are you feeling? So are you calm? How is your daily routine? So they know that there's something, but that they cannot make up the mechanism. They can tell you, you produce this hormone or that hormone, but why? Why would you liberate those mechanisms that are bad for your body? So that they can tell all about the hormones in your body, but they don't know what's the mechanism. They just know that it happens. Oh, we are growing. We are getting there, and we'll continue growing until someday the fact that we love more, we are more, we feel and share with others our love. It will be something that will be doctors recommended. Anything else, guys? No? All right, so we're going to thank you everybody who watched us through the internet. We're going to prepare for the fast now.